"You're sure this is the place?" Sam squinted through the dusty windshield, wiping away a smear of dirt with the back of her hand. The GPS on her phone had led them down a desolate road that seemed to stretch on forever, the kind of place where even the tumbleweeds had abandoned hope of crossing. "It's got to be," Dave replied, his voice tight with tension. "This is what the email said," right? He checked his phone for what felt like the 100th time, the screen casting an eerie blue glow in the car's dim cabin. The email had arrived 2 weeks ago, an anonymous tip about a forgotten treasure hidden somewhere in the desert. It contained coordinates, a cryptic poem, and a warning not to come alone. They had both laughed it off at first, but the more they talked, the more the idea grew on them. An adventure, a break from the monotony of their lives, and maybe, just maybe, a shot at finding something amazing. They had packed their gear and set out early that morning, the excitement of discovery bubbling in their veins. Now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery reds and oranges, they found themselves in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but endless dunes and the occasional skeletal cactus. The car finally rumbled to a stop beside a solitary rock formation, jutting out of the sand like a broken tooth. The silence that followed was so profound it seemed to echo in their ears. Sam turned to Dave, her expression a blend of excitement and trepidation. "Well, we're here," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What now?" Dave scanned the horizon, the last slices of sunlight fading away. "Let's set up camp," he suggested. "We'll start the search tomorrow." The night was eerily still, not even the distant howl of a coyote to break the silence. They pitched their tent with the ease of a well-practiced routine, their movements efficient despite the creeping sense of unease. As they sat by the flickering campfire, the crackle of the flames seemed to whisper secrets that only the desert knew. "You don't think we're being watched, do you?" Sam whispered, her eyes darting to the shadows beyond the fire's reach. "It's just the wind," Dave assured her, though his eyes didn't leave the darkness either. "We're probably the most exciting thing to happen around here in 100 years. But as they settled into their sleeping bags, the silence grew heavier, almost tangible. It was as if the desert itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. And as the first stars began to wink into existence, they realized they weren't entirely alone. In the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and lanky, moving with an unnatural grace that sent shivers down their spines. It was a man, or at least it looked like a man, but the way he moved suggested something off. His eyes glowed an unearthly yellow, piercing the night like twin beacons. "What the hell is that?" Sam breathed, her voice barely audible. Dave's heart hammered in his chest. "I don't know," he murmured, reaching for the flashlight. "But we're about to find out." The figure grew closer, his long, tattered coat fluttering in the wind like the wings of a giant bat. He was definitely human, yet the way he moved suggested he was something else entirely. His eyes remained locked on them, unblinking, as if they were the only source of light in the vast, dark desert. "We should get in the car," Sam urged, her voice shaking. But before they could react, the creature was upon them, moving with a speed that defied logic. It reached for them, its fingers elongating into claws that clicked against the sand. Dave swung the flashlight up, the beam piercing the darkness and illuminating the creature's face. It was a face that would haunt their nightmares for weeks to come, gaunt, with skin stretched taut over bones, a twisted smile that revealed rows of teeth that were too sharp to be human. The creature hissed and recoiled from the light, its eyes squeezed shut in pain. They took the opportunity to scramble into the car, slamming the doors and locking them just as the creature lunged. The car's engine roared to life, and they sped away, tires spitting sand in their wake. The creature chased them for a short distance before it vanished into the night, leaving only the echo of its unearthly cries to follow them. Shaking, they drove for what felt like hours, the adrenaline keeping them alert despite their exhaustion. It was only when they reached the outskirts of civilization, the first signs of life emerging from the darkness, that they dared to breathe again. They found a small motel, the neon sign flickering erratically in the quiet night. The owner eyed them suspiciously but took their cash without question. Inside their room, they collapsed onto the beds, still fully clothed, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. "What was that?" Sam finally whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Dave had no answer. The treasure had transformed from a whimsical adventure into a nightmare they hadn't anticipated. They had stumbled into something ancient and malevolent, something that didn't belong in their world. As they lay there, listening to the distant whispers of the desert, they made a silent pact come morning. They would leave the treasure to the sands and never speak of it again. But even as they drifted into an uneasy sleep, the thought lingered in the back of their minds, what if the creature had followed them? What if it wasn't content with just scaring them off? The hours ticked by with the relentless pace of a predator stalking its prey. Every creak of the motel walls, every rustle of the curtains sent their hearts racing. And as the first light of dawn began to creep into the room, they realized that the horror wasn't just in the desert, it was now with them, wherever they went. They woke early, their nerves frayed and sleep a distant memory. The sunrise painted the sky in soft pinks and purples, a stark contrast to the darkness that had consumed them the night before. They packed their things quickly, eager to put as much distance between themselves and the creature as possible. As they checked out of the motel, the owner's eyes lingered on them, his curiosity piqued by their disheveled appearance and the haste in their movements. They offered a hasty goodbye, avoiding his probing gaze, and climbed back into the car. The engine turned over with a comforting purr, and they were soon back on the road, leaving the desolate motel behind. The drive home was fraught with tension, the silence between them speaking louder than any words could. They didn't dare speak of the creature, as if saying its name would summon it from the shadows. Instead, they focused on the mundane, the everyday, trying to convince themselves that it was all just a terrible, twisted dream. But the nightmare wasn't over. As they approached the city limits, they noticed a car following them, a black sedan that seemed to blend with the shadows despite the growing light of day. It remained a constant presence in their rearview mirror, never closing the gap, but never falling too far behind either. Panic set in. Was it a coincidence, or had the creature somehow tracked them? The email had warned them not to come alone, but it had never mentioned the consequences of bringing the treasure's curse back with them. They took a series of random turns, trying to lose the tail, but the sedan remained steadfast, its yellow eyes burning a hole in their thoughts. Finally, they pulled over at a gas station, their hearts racing. The sedan stopped a few spaces behind them, its engine idling with a malevolent patience. They watched as the driver's door slowly opened, and the creature from the desert stepped out. It had shed its tattered coat, revealing a sharply tailored suit that seemed to absorb the light around it. Its skin was still stretched too tight over its bones, and those teeth, those terrible, sharp teeth, were now hidden behind a sinister smile. "You can't run from what you've awakened," it said, its voice a dry rasp that carried on the breeze. "The treasure is mine, and now so are you." With no other option, they fled into the gas station, the creature's laughter echoing after them. They knew that the adventure they had sought had become a prison from which there might be no escape. And as they heard the scraping of its claws on the pavement, drawing ever closer, they realized that the desert wasn't the only place where nightmares roamed free. The gas station was a tiny oasis of civilization, but it was deserted except for the cashier, who looked up from his newspaper with a yawn. The bell jingled as they slammed the door shut behind them, the sound piercing the quiet morning. "Call the police," Sam managed to croak, her voice hoarse from fear. "Tell them there's a monster out there." The cashier looked at them with a mix of skepticism and confusion. But before he could respond, the creature was there, peering through the window, its eyes like twin suns burning through the dusty glass. It tapped a long, clawed finger against the pane, leaving a crack that spiderwebbed outward. Dave's eyes darted around the room, searching for anything they could use to defend themselves. His hand closed around a plastic baseball bat that had been left next to the chips, its end still wrapped in plastic. He tore it free, gripping it tightly as the creature stepped closer. The cashier had gone pale, his eyes wide with terror. "Look," he stammered, holding up his hands. "Take whatever you want. Just leave me out of it." But the creature wasn't interested in the meager offerings of the gas station. It had set its sights on the treasure hunters, and it wasn't about to let them go without a fight. The glass door shattered inward, raining shards onto the floor. The creature stepped inside, its smile stretching wider, revealing more of those horrific teeth. Sam screamed, a sound that was cut short as the creature lunged. Dave swung the bat with all his strength, connecting with the creature's arm. There was a sickening crunch, and it reeled back, its eyes flashing with anger. But the pain seemed to fuel it rather than deter it. With a snarl, it swiped a clawed hand at Dave, who barely managed to dodge. Sam grabbed a can of gasoline from the shelf and threw it at the creature, the liquid arcing through the air in a fiery rainbow. It hit the creature's chest and splashed to the ground. Dave took a step back, his heart in his throat, and then did the unthinkable. He flicked his lighter. The station exploded in a ball of flame, the heat and light consuming everything. The creature let out an inhuman screech, its body engulfed by the fire. And as the inferno roared around them, Dave and Sam stumbled out the back door, choking and coughing. The fire spread quickly, the gas pumps exploding like a string of fireworks. They watched in horror as the creature emerged from the flames, its suit burned away to reveal the charred skeleton beneath. But it wasn't dead, it was just getting started. The creature stumbled towards them, its bones blackened and smoking, the fire seemingly a part of it now. They had no idea what to do, their makeshift weaponry useless against this supernatural being. And then, amidst the chaos, the creature paused, cocking its head to the side as if listening to something only it could hear. And with a final, furious roar, it turned away from them and disappeared into the flames, leaving them to wonder if they had truly seen the last of the desert's ancient guardian. The fire consumed the gas station, casting a fiery glow over the surrounding area. As the sirens grew louder, they knew they had to get as far from this place as possible. They sprinted to their car, their breaths ragged and their hearts pounding. As they drove away, the reflection of the burning building grew smaller in the rearview mirror. They couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still watching them. The treasure was lost, and with it, perhaps their innocence. They had sought adventure and found only terror. But as the flames receded into the distance, they made a silent promise to each other. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it together. For in the vast, uncaring expanse of the desert, they had discovered something far more precious than gold, the unshakable bond that comes from staring into the abyss and not letting go.